If you are watching this right now, stop everything you are doing, because what you are about to hear could be the most important information you will ever receive about the health of your brain. Scientists have been quietly uncovering a pattern that is almost impossible to ignore. Across different countries, different cultures, and different lifestyles, there is one group of elderly people that stands out. They are sharp. They are present. They remember names, dates, conversations, and details with an ease that most people half their age cannot match. And when researchers looked closely at what these people had in common, they found not a miracle drug, not an expensive supplement, not a secret surgery. They found a set of daily habits. Simple, quiet, consistent habits that most of us have been completely overlooking. The brain is not like a muscle that peaks in your 20s and slowly dies from that point forward. That is one of the biggest myths in modern medicine, and it has been causing real harm for decades. The truth, backed by decades of neuroscience research, is that the brain remains plastic, meaning capable of forming new connections, repairing old ones, and reorganizing itself, well into old age. But this process does not happen automatically. It requires stimulation. It requires the right kind of daily input. And this is where the habits of cognitively protected elderly people begin to reveal something extraordinary. Before we go any further, if you care about someone who is over 60, share this right now. The information in this description could change their life. The first thing researchers consistently notice about elderly people who age without cognitive decline is that they maintain deep, purposeful social connections, not surface-level interactions, not scrolling through other people's lives on a screen, but real, face-to-face, emotionally engaging conversations with people they genuinely care about. What happens in the brain during these interactions is remarkable. Multiple regions activate simultaneously: the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and this synchronized activation essentially exercises the brain the way running exercises the heart. Loneliness, on the other hand, has been shown in multiple studies to accelerate cognitive decline faster than almost any other lifestyle factor. The elderly people who never develop Alzheimer's are rarely isolated. They are embedded in communities, families, friendships. They talk, they argue gently, they laugh loudly, they share meals. And all of this, while it may seem purely social, is deeply biological. The second habit is one that almost no one connects to brain health, and yet the evidence is overwhelming. These individuals maintain a consistent and meaningful sense of purpose. They wake up in the morning with a reason to get out of bed that goes beyond routine. Some of them garden. Some of them teach children or grandchildren. Some of them write, paint, volunteer, or build things with their hands. What they share is not the specific activity, but the feeling that what they do matters. To themselves, to someone else, to the world, in some small but real way. Purpose activates the brain's reward circuitry in ways that are deeply protective. It reduces cortisol, the stress hormone most directly linked to hippocampal shrinkage. It promotes the release of dopamine and serotonin, which are not just feel-good chemicals, but essential components of neurological maintenance. When purpose disappears from a person's life, especially after retirement, the brain can begin to quietly deteriorate. The people who never let that happen are the ones who never stop asking the question, "What am I here for today?" Now here is where it gets truly fascinating, and this is something researchers are only beginning to understand. Many of the elderly people who maintain sharp cognition into their 80s and 90s have a habit of deliberately learning things that are difficult for them. Not things they already know how to do, not comfortable repetition, but genuinely hard, genuinely frustrating, genuinely new challenges. Learning a new language in your 70s, taking up an instrument for the first time at 80, studying chess strategy or mathematics or philosophy. The discomfort, that sense of not yet understanding, of reaching for something just beyond your grasp, is not a sign that you are failing. It is the exact signal the brain needs to produce something called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is often described as fertilizer for the brain. It promotes the growth of new neurons, the strengthening of synaptic connections, and the overall resilience of brain tissue against the plaques and tangles associated with Alzheimer's disease. The uncomfortable feeling of learning something new is not something to avoid. It is something to seek out, deliberately, every single day. If you are reading this, and you have a parent or grandparent who has stopped challenging themselves mentally, please send them this, right now. It could be the most loving thing you do for them this year. Movement is the next piece of this picture, and it deserves far more attention than it typically receives. The cognitive benefits of physical exercise are not metaphorical. They are measurable, structural, and profound. In elderly people who exercise regularly, even something as gentle as daily walking for 30 to 45 minutes, the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory center, actually increases in volume. This is the opposite of what normally happens with aging. In people who are sedentary, the hippocampus shrinks by about 1% per year after the age of 55 or 60. In people who walk, who dance, who do light resistance training, or yoga, this shrinkage not only slows, but reverses. The brain literally grows. Blood flow increases, oxygen delivery improves, inflammatory markers decrease, and the brain's own cleaning system, the glymphatic system, which flushes out toxic waste proteins during sleep, functions more efficiently. The elderly people who never develop Alzheimer's are almost never completely sedentary. They move. They may not run marathons, but they move every single day with consistency and with joy. Sleep is perhaps the most underestimated habit in this entire picture. In cultures where sleep is treated as laziness or inefficiency, rates of cognitive decline are visibly higher. The brain does not rest during sleep. It works. It consolidates memories, it processes emotion, it repairs cellular damage, and critically, it activates the glymphatic system to wash out amyloid beta and tau proteins, the exact proteins that accumulate in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Elderly people who protect their sleep fiercely, who maintain regular sleep schedules, who sleep in dark and quiet environments, who avoid alcohol before bed, and limit screen exposure at night, are essentially protecting their brains from one of the most direct pathways to neurodegeneration. 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep is not a luxury for an aging brain. It is maintenance. It is the equivalent of taking your car in for an oil change. Skip it long enough, and the engine begins to fail. Diet is deeply intertwined with all of this. The elderly people who retain their cognitive sharpness tend to eat in ways that reduce systemic inflammation. Inflammation is now understood to be a central mechanism in the development of Alzheimer's disease, and the foods we eat either feed that inflammation or fight it. Diets rich in leafy green vegetables, olive oil, fatty fish, berries, nuts, and legumes, sometimes called the Mediterranean diet or its close relative, the MIND diet, have been shown in longitudinal studies to dramatically reduce the risk of cognitive decline. These are not trends or fads. They are centuries-old eating patterns from regions of the world where Alzheimer's and dementia have historically been rare. The people who eat this way are not doing it because of a study they read. They are doing it because it is woven into their culture, their families, their daily rituals, and their brains are paying the price, in the most positive sense of that phrase. There is one final habit, and in some ways it is the most powerful of all, and the most surprising. The elderly people who never develop Alzheimer's tend to have what psychologists call emotional regulation. The ability to manage stress, to process difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them, and to maintain a fundamentally optimistic orientation toward life. This is not toxic positivity. This is not the denial of hardship or grief. These people have suffered. Many of them have lost spouses, children, friends. Many of them have faced poverty, war, illness. But they have developed, often through years of practice, sometimes through faith, sometimes through therapy, sometimes through journaling, sometimes through meditation, a capacity to return to equilibrium after disturbance. Chronic stress is neurotoxic. It floods the brain with cortisol, which at sustained high levels damages the very regions responsible for memory and executive function. The people who can feel the storm without being destroyed by it are the people whose brains endure. None of these habits are exotic. None of them require money, privilege, or access to advanced medicine. What they require is intention, awareness. The decision, made each morning, to treat your brain not as an inevitable casualty of time, but as a living, changing, improvable system that responds to how you live. The research is clear. The patterns are visible. The habits exist, practiced quietly, consistently, joyfully, in the lives of remarkable people all over the world who have reached their 80s and 90s with their minds fully intact. If this description moved something in you, share it. Send it to someone you love who is aging. Leave a comment. Start the conversation. Because the best time to protect the brain is today, not tomorrow, and not after symptoms appear. The habits that protect the brain take time to build, but they are available to everyone, starting right now, starting with you.